for your strength. And on behalf of everybody in the truther community, I'm so grateful for you.
Oh, that means a lot to me, 𝐙𝐿𝐻. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. And I just finished taking your course. I took a September course, and it was fabulous, fantastic. It is such a chill environment. You and Taylor make it so much fun. You guys bounce off each other so well. And it's a good energy in the course, good information, and you just give so much time for people to ask questions, which is so important. Everybody has so many questions, and you really just set aside so much of the time to let the people ask. So, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, let's go. The first thing that I wanted to talk about today, because I don't really have the story straight in my head, is the story of your birth and what happened to your mom when she was pregnant with you. And I would love to, you just showed me before we started recording a picture of your mom, and I would love everybody to see your mom and how beautiful she was, so we could have the picture of her in our mind as you're telling the story of who she was and what she went through.
Sure. Let me get the picture. So this is her. There you go.
So beautiful.
Okay. That's her when she was like 19, 20 or 21. I'm not sure, but in her youthful days. And her story is deep. Well, okay, first of all, let me rewind back to even before I was conceived. I come from a very mysterious family. My grandfather, her father, was an international drug lord, and he inherited his empire from his father. His father, Abel, was also part of this, but back then his father, my great-grandfather, was more into the transportation of illegal alcohol, this is when alcohol was illegal back in the early 1900s before it became legal. And that's how it all started with my great-grandfather, who operated from Spain. So he had a huge connection with the Godfather of Italy, with the Russians, with the Colombians, and he spoke many languages, my great-grandfather. And so he inherited his, I guess, empire through his father. So there was always like this thing where it's the first male born, right? First male born inherits, the family's empire. And so my grandfather inherited, and he was expecting his first male born. And so it's weird the way the universe works. So apparently he lost 3 childs, which were both going to be males, all 3 of them, sorry. And they were all going to be males. And one of them had complications and was miscarried at 6 months. The other one had complications and was miscarried at 4 months. And then the third one was born, but right when he was born, he had some issue where he just couldn't make it. He didn't make it. And then finally they tried again for the fourth time, but this time it was a woman, and he wasn't very happy about that. He wasn't very happy about that. And that woman was my mother. So my mother did make it. She was born, and because he was furious that it wasn't a male, it wasn't a son, he made my grandmother believe that, first of all, he took my mom and he took her over to his mom's house, my great-grandmother, in order for her to raise her. And then she ended up telling my grandmother that she didn't make it after all, just like all the other prior childs, that, she also passed away, which was a great deception to my grandmother. My grandmother thought, that she also had complications and that she didn't make it. But in essence, she did, right? He just kind of took her over to be raised by his own mother. And so, they tried again. They kept trying, and now he was just having girl after girl. At that point, he was just like, he felt like he was cursed. So he ended up having 9 girls. It's interesting the way the universe works, huh?
Right, God has a sense of humor.
Okay, so my mom's story reads like Cinderella. Okay, so this is where I'm getting at with this. So basically, after 5 or 6 years, the 9 sisters, well, back then there was like 6 sisters. The rest came later. They were already grown up, and my mother was, my mother was already 8 or 9. So a lot of those sisters were like 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and then one of them, a couple of them were like 3 and 1 toddlers, but a few of them had already, reached the higher age. And one day my mother decided to visit her mom, to visit her family. I don't know how it happened. My grandfather told his mother to keep her secret, to keep her locked in and just raise her and educate her with no one knowing that she was alive. And so I don't know how it happened, but one day my mother showed up at the age of 9, I think, and she had like a little bob haircut, like a little bob do. So she kind of looked like a boy. And so she came to the door at her parents' house, and my grandmother answered and she said, "What do you want, little boy?" And my mother looked up to her mom and said, "I'm not no little boy. I'm your firstborn, Maria." And my grandmother said, "What do you mean you're my firstborn? You're not my firstborn. My children are inside the house. Who are you, little kid? It's time for you to go." And she goes, "No, no, no, wait, don't close the door. You know, um, you've been lied to about my birth. Your husband, my father, deceived you, making you believe that I didn't make it. And this whole time I was raised by his mom. And now I want to reunite with you." And she goes, "What do you mean? You can't be my firstborn. She died. She died within hours." And she goes, "No, no, no, no. Listen, you have to understand. I'm her. I never died. I'm here. I'm real." And then finally, I guess my grandmother called my grandfather and confronted him. And he just, he confessed at that point. He goes, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. I kept that from you for all these years." But see, the thing is he was in a position where he was very dominated over his wife and all, his children. And so whatever he told his wife, she had to believe him cold turkey because of his power and his money,
Right.
because of his status. And so she was like, "Why did you lie to me? I can't believe, you deceived me about our firstborn and you gave her over to your mom to be raised in secret, just." So it caused issues, of course, but, he put her in her place because of his power. And so they did allow my mom to move in eventually, but they treated her like a maid. Yeah, they actually, because they did have several maids. He was a multimillionaire back then and big mansion, and that's why we had like deers. That's why I talked about how I grew up with a lot of animals when I was a kid. Like we had horses, we had cows, we had chickens, we had deers. Like we had a baby deer. I called her Bambi. I named her. Um, and so we had all kinds of animals. And so she was treated like Cinderella. They would literally make her sleep on the floor. She didn't have her own room, even though the house had 10 rooms. Two of the rooms were given to two of the maids, and they had beds, but for whatever reason, they wouldn't allow my mom to sleep on a bed. They told her to sleep on the floor in the corner somewhere. Yeah, because there was no room for her. And so at the same time, when they all would go out, and her and her, I guess back then 5, 6 sisters, for family dinner or something, they would never take her. I guess my grandfather was embarrassed of her. And so she would always be in the house and they would always give her chores to do. So they literally treated her like Cinderella. She was constantly cleaning, constantly picking up after their dishes, constantly picking up after their young sisters. And even as they had more children, as they grew up, all the sisters would envy my mother because of her natural beauty, you know, and they would treat her like shit. They would gang up on her and beat her up. So from the beginning, my mother had it very hard. Not only was she rejected by her own family, but she was never included in the family. In the family thing.
She probably died of a broken heart. Do you think that's what?
Oh, that was just the beginning of her suffering. There's more. Yeah. So the whole point is that she's always been the black sheep of the family, but yet she's the one who inherited all the gifts of like clairvoyance. She was a medium. She was a precog. She would see things before they happened, like a prophet. She was like a prophetess. She had amazing medium and psychic gifts. And this is hereditary because my grandfather's mother had them. My grandmother's father and mother had them. And so I come from a family of people who have these, that were mediums. And so that's why it's hereditary. And none of her sisters inherited it except my mom. She inherited all the spiritual gifts.
Wow.
And, the whole point is that all her life she suffered because of the fact that my grandfather wanted a first male born and he never had a chance to have a first male born. So he, I guess, made her life, miserable as a result of that. And one day, she was always trying to appease him. She was like, when she was 18, she was like, "Dad, give me an opportunity. I know I could do good in your business." She had no clue that he was, dealing with international illegal stuff. She was just like, she knew he was wealthy. She knew he owned a lot of land and that he had a lot of people working for him, including policemen and politicians. They, were all paid by him to, do his bidding. And she would always appease him and try to win his favor. And then one day he said, "All right, if you want to win my favor, I have a check that I need you to cash. It comes from, a transaction I just made, and I need you to go to this specific bank at this specific time and cash this check." And she went to the bank, and it was a check for $1 million. And then back then in the early 70s, $1 million was a lot of money. Or I'm sorry, yeah, early 70s. Yeah, it was early 70s. I'm sorry, I was born in 77, so it was like maybe 70, 76, 75. It was like a year before I was born, or a year or two. But so she goes to this bank, and it turns out that he completely set her up with a check with no funds, an illegal check. So he set it up in a way where she got arrested. Again, he was an evil man, unfortunately for him. But later on, his karma caught up to him and through cancer, and that was a different story. But so she ended up going to jail. And when she was in jail, because she was like the most prettiest girl in jail, all the other girls would like beat her up and treat her like shit. And then one day, one day they decided to torture her. And what they did to torture my mother in jail. And I think that it was an order by my grandfather, because my grandfather also had connections in prisons, and he would like tell people what to do in prisons. And by his command and by his order, they tortured her. And it is just sad. I mean, I'm going to just tell you what they did to her. They would put water in her eyes, and they would take electrical wires and shock her eyes, so her eyes would start like bleeding, and she was like just bleeding from her eyes. Her face was like swollen from all the harsh, brutal beatings that she got. And then luckily she had already been with my dad, my biological father. And he was studying to become an attorney, and so he used everything in his power to get her out as soon as possible. So after she went through that torture, my father was able to get her out of jail, out of prison. And from what I was told is that she was all bruised up, like you couldn't even see her face anymore, and her eyes were all swollen. And so she suffered a lot, and all because my grandfather never had her first male born. He put her through a lot of torture. But anyhow, fast forward into when I was conceived. Okay, so when I was conceived, you could say that it was, the way she told me was, she was taken aboard a big place where the angels were around her. She didn't know they were ETs, right? She called them angels.
At the time of conception or after conception she was taken?
Well, first she told me she had a dream. She had a dream that Michael the archangel descended upon her and conceived her. But then he told her to make my father think I was his. Similar to the situation of Mary and Joseph when they had Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, so Michael came forward. I know this sounds weird, but according to her, Michael the archangel was the one who conceived her egg. And the reason he picked her was because I come from a lineage that could be, I guess she carries a high concentration of the Holy Grail blood. And that's why they picked her, And so she was taken throughout her pregnancy with me. She would tell me about these beautiful experiences where she was aboard she called it aboard heaven, but I believe it was a mothership. And she says that all these luminous beings, angels, were around her, and they were monitoring my growth. They were checking my status, every few months to seeing how I was developing. And that they told her they would always bless her, put their arms on her stomach, and they informed her that I was, that I was different, that I was going to be part human, part, celestial. And that my purpose here had a lot to do with a future war, the final war against evil. And that I was going to be a huge component in that, final victory against evil. And so from my childhood, she would always tell me that I was different, that I had a gift, that, my DNA is not of this world, and that one day I was going to help millions of people. And that's what she told me, that one day I was going to help millions of people. Whatever that meant back then, I didn't know, but now I know what it meant. I'm activating, the information that I'm bringing forth is helping people remember who they are, and people are being triggered, people are being activated. So I think that's what she meant, that one day I was just going to help millions of people. So I believe that those millions of people that she was referring to are the star seeds, are the volunteer souls that came to save the earth and the organic way of life. So that was a quick story.
Wow, thank you, Ismael. That's a fascinating story, and I believe every word, because we're living in these times where all bets are off. and anything is possible. And I've opened my consciousness in ways, and you've helped me do this too, I'm thinking of things in terms of the galactic context. I'm going back and like reframing. There's a lot of questions for you about the Bible, and I'm thinking of the Bible in galactic terms now. And I'm just amazed at that story of your mom. Wow. God bless her. God bless her. Hopefully we get to reunite and actually meet her soon.
Oh, she's already sitting on her throne, I guess.
Yeah. Do you contact with her? Do you have dreams about her?
I do sometimes, and when I'm in dire situations or what appear to be in troublesome scenarios, I feel like she's always there to help me. And so I do feel her presence a lot around me, especially nowadays that I'm like reaching a lot of people. I feel like she's protecting me along with my ancestors and my guardian angels.
Were you overwhelmed as a kid when she would tell you that you're going to have this big mission? Did that overwhelm you?
I didn't quite understand it then. I just felt like, all right, whatever you said, Mom.
Okay, you were chill about it.
I was chill. Yeah, I didn't know what she meant. I thought at one point I just thought maybe it was just her trying to make me feel a little better because I was always bullied throughout grade school, And
but
so
she was serious. She meant it.
Serious. Yeah, she meant it.
I want to go back to something that we spoke about in our first interview. It's called the Foundation Stone, and I did a little more research about it. I'm actually reading a book about it, and in this book, this man, his name is, I sent you this book, I messaged you about it, Joel David Bax, and it's called The Jerusalem Stone of Consciousness. And he says that underneath the Dome of the Rock, they call it the Dome of the Rock because of the stone of the foundation stone. And he says in this book that the Kabbalah that is passed down is that this stone was where Adam was formed, where Jacob had his dream, where Isaac was bound. There's like a lot of biblical events happened on the stone, and the two temples were built around the stone. So he says that the stone is to the galaxies what each of our pineal glands is to us. Meaning that when we activate our pineal gland, we release endogenous DMT. Like we can create our own DMT and open up our consciousness and with the pineal gland when it gets activated. So he says the more people activating their pineal glands, we actually activate this stone, and this stone is what will expand the consciousness of the galaxies. So I understood from this that I think we're the hub of the galaxy because of the stone.
Makes perfect sense. That ties into all my research and everything that I've been teaching.
So what are you going to do about the stone? How are you going to get the stone?
Well, I think it's I think there's a relationship between our own activation of our own third eye chakra, pineal gland. With the activation of our own pineal gland, I think we are going to activate the stone, which is the pineal gland of the entire galaxy. Yeah. So
how do we? What are ways? Sorry to interrupt you, but what are ways that we could activate our pineal gland?
There's different ways. I've been doing Kriya Kundalini Yoga, which is a technique that I teach at the end of my Starseed Cosmology course. Were you there when I taught it? Yeah, you were, right?
Yeah.
That's one way. Through this through the breathing. The conscious breathing, inhaling through your nose, holding it, and then exhaling it. Putting all your attention at the center of your eye, coiling your tongue backwards. That's one way of doing it. Do that 20 to 30 minutes a day. Your tongue is backwards. You're closing your eyes. You're putting all the focus in the center here. And you are breathing in through your nose, inhaling very slow, and to the point where you are just full of air and you can't breathe anymore, and you hold it for a second, and you just exhale with your mouth, also very slow. That's the fastest way of activating the pineal gland. And I think as more of us begin to do that, the Dome of the Rock, the stone within the Dome of the Rock, is going to activate, and that's just going to allow our entire galaxy to be reconnected to the cosmic currents, where every dimension is now going to be connected with each other to the point where we're going to have access to other realms.
I think it's a portal that he was saying that this foundation stone is like this he said that all of life enters through it and all of death leaves through it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I don't know, it's crazy stuff. But I was saying before we started recording, Ishmael, that you should add this to your next book. All the stuff that you teach in your course, like with diagrams, because I wasn't writing it down. I was just watching you do it, and then I don't remember most of it. So, and I think so many people would benefit. So
Thank you for that great idea. I will incorporate that in my next book.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And he also says that, I wanted to read you this.
Mm-hmm.
He says that the word Zion is a code name for foundation stone. And I know you love the word Zion.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be interchangeable for foundation stone. So when you see Project Restoration Zion, you could almost be talking about the stone. Okay, so Guru had a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to forget. So I'm going to play it for you. Mr. Guru. You ready?
I sure am.
Gila, I just have one question for Ismael. They talk about how they didn't invent new languages. Where does Hebrew come from? What is it, Pleiadian? What is the source of Hebrew? I don't know if you knew that already, but I'm curious because
it is Pleiadian
language for the.
That's the gist of the question.
Yes.
Where did Hebrew come from?
The language Hebrew comes from the Pleiadians. It used to be called Ibiru, and that's why they call it Nibiru, the planet Nibiru. So on the planet Nibiru, they spoke Hebrew, but it used to be called Ibiru, and then later they put an H in front of the word. So it's definitely Pleiadian, and we're referring to the Iberian Pleiadians, not the Draco Iberians, the good Anunnaki, the Watchers, what the Bible calls the sons of God in the Book of Genesis.
Wow, you like blow my mind every time I talk to you. Was it true? I had once heard that the Pleiadians abandoned us, and that's why they feel they have to come help us.
No, it's not that they abandoned us. They actually stayed from behind the scenes to assist us in the war against the Babylonian Luciferian cabal. They've always been around from the operating from the fifth dimension. They are actually the angels in the Bible. And every religious text talks about the angels that would assist us, that would guide the prophets, that would direct us, that would sometimes appear to the sages and the seers and revelators. Those are all Pleiadians.
Wow. And I just read in your book, I was reading your book yesterday again, and how in the desert, when the Israelites wandered, the cloud by day and the fire by night were like motherships. Were they? What did you say about that?
They were spaceships, yes.
They were spaceships.
Exactly.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, all this Bible stuff is now in a galactic context for me, which is so cool. And then I have this friend, Esther, who always messages me. She's like, the third temple is going to be a mothership that comes down.
That's right? The New Jerusalem. That's the mothership called the New Jerusalem. Yes. And it's already parked within our atmosphere. With other motherships.
Ready and waiting. Oh, and then I was thinking about the high priest in the temple, the first and second temple, wore a breastplate of 12 stones, each one for the 12 tribes, 12 crystals. So I was then thinking that was like crystal technology to interface with God. Like they used it to get answers. They would ask it a question, and I was thinking, like, I don't think of it as ancient anymore. I think of it as they had technology back then that we lost and we're trying to retrieve.
Yes, that's accurate too. Yeah, and the 12 also is symbolic to the 12 cosmic rays of power, which is something that I recently put out that is completely related to the Holy Grail lineage. The Knights of the Round Table of King Arthur, the Council of 12, the 12 Apostles. All that stuff is related to the governing system of the Brotherhood of Light, of the Order of Melchizedek.
Right. The galaxies are like organized by 12.
Exactly. Everything within, well, it's because we're part of the 12th creation, but everything within the 12th creation is organized within the system of the 12. But as I speak, we're now going to be entering the 13th creation.
So what does that mean?
That means that we're moving from the system of the 12, the Council of 12, to the system of the 13th, which means that we're going to be part of a new universal program where everything is now going to be, because there's a new ray that is being born, and that ray is already living among us. It's embodied, and that ray is going to be symbolizing the 13th, which means that instead of having 12 houses of the zodiac, now we're going to include the 12th and the 13, which is the hidden, the one. It also ties into the return of the sacred divine feminine, or the restoration of the mother goddess, the central universe of the holy Shekinah. Shekinah means feminine creation.
I knew
Uh,
that.
which is the offspring or the bride of Yahweh. Yahweh is masculine creation, right? Our universal father, Yahweh, our universal mother, Shekinah, right? They have different names. So we're going into the system of the motherverse, as the light circuits reconnect our galaxy with M31 Andromeda. We're going to go from this current reality into one that is plugged into the eternal life systems, and that new creation is going to be kickstarted with the ascension of the earth, which is going to be
Wow.
awesome. So everything's moving the system of the 13th.
Because I always learned in my upbringing with Judaism that there's this light that God had a creation. It's called the Or Haganuz in Hebrew, and it means that he hid away in like a jar, a special light. So that could be the 13th ray. That could be the special light that he's going to bring back. Yeah, that's very cool. Okay, in your course, you spoke about involution and evolution, and every time I hear you teach something, I understand it better. So I understood what it means to come down from higher dimensions as opposed to evolving up from lower dimensions. Can the soul go through both processes? Like, let's say I had an Akashic record reading that said I had 707 lives. So I'm thinking, what process did I go through all those lives? Did I climb, and then decide to descend? How does it work?
How it works is this is an individual process as well as a collective process. In terms of being a collective process, you could say that the universal mind of the central or the always existing universe is exploring more of itself through the dissension, which is the involution, right? The fragmentalization, the division, where it breaks off into smaller pieces. Each piece contains the whole in terms of the holographic concept of reality. That's called the involution on a collective level, so we're already ended that. That lasted 900-something billion years. Now we're going back. Now where the pieces are reuniting back with the whole, which is also equivalent to the ascension or evolutionary process. On an individual level, there are times where we as individual souls, we begin at the top, and as whole light beings, through this process of lowering our frequency, we become denser and denser, and that's also called the involutionary process, as we become less connected with everything, right? So that we could remember eventually that we are one with everything. So that's the great illusion that comes with the involutionary descent process, is that we begin to see everything as separated as we go into the lower dimensions. And then, of course, the opposite of that would be the ascension, which is the evolutionary process, the remembrance that we're all interconnected, that everything is one, that everything is energy, and that we're all part of a greater organism. And that allows an individual to begin the ascension process as the individualized unit of consciousness of that individual eventually reunites with the consciousness of the all, which is the logos. So those are two different examples of that. So it is possible that many of us have undergone both the involutionary descent process and the evolutionary ascent process over and over and over. And that determines the wisest of souls. Those that have completed that process, I guess, more times than those that haven't, are the wisest of souls in the cosmos. So because of the fact that we do operate different avatars, and we do exist simultaneously in other realms and parallel universes, there's different aspects of ourselves. Your aspect right now existing in this realm could be part of the involutionary process, but then there's another aspect of 𝐙𝐃𝐂 that's already completed the ascension process, where she is now reunited with the totality of everything. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense, believe it or not. I get it. I have to think about it more later, but I think I get it. Okay, the next thing I wanted to ask you. Okay, the financial part of the awakening. I love it. Like, I follow Mel Carmine and Amber and Whiplash and Emily, and like I'm like lit up by this financial, because I understand, Ismael, that this is our liberation. When the planet shifts to the quantum financial system, it's like we're all bust out of jail, So it gives me the biggest satisfaction to help people set up lobster wallets, buy XRP, like, I love helping people do this, because I understand that I'm helping them liberate themselves. My question for you, Ismael, is this: does that mean I'm going to be like stuck in the fourth dimension for a while because I love this aspect so much?
No, not at all.
Okay, thanks for saying that.
Yeah, that's good for the younger souls that are moving up to the fourth dimension or the fourth density. But for us, the star seeds, we're going directly into the 5th and above.
So who's
Which
going to
means
help them? They'll
we're
have.
gonna we are. We're still going to have the ability to, through the process of lowering our frequency, pop into their dimension. And then,
Oh,
yeah, so they're going to see us as the Pleiadians did in ancient times, where the Pleiadians would come as angels and they would pop out of reality.
oh, that'll be so fun. That'll be so fun.
I just hope that they don't worship us as gods. I'm just kidding.
We
No,
won't.
we're going to be humble. We're going to be humble this time.
You're already humble. You're already. You're teaching everybody how to be humble. Okay, why is the God in the Bible portrayed as with these angry and frightening emotions? It always scared me as a little kid. I was terrified of God because of the way he was taught to me.
Okay, so that was the tampering that took place with the Babylonian priesthood. They totally tampered. Well, when they reorganized as the Catholic Church, that's when the tampering came. The canonization of the accepted books of the Bible were completely modified to make it seem like the God of the Old Testament was this vengeful God. But who they were really referring to was Marduk. Marduk was the vengeful one, the son of Enki, not Enlil. Enlil's Zeus, Jehovah, Elion, was the God of the Hebrews. He was actually very benevolent. And yes, there was times where he would forbid them to mix with the other groups like the Canaanites because of the fact that the other groups carried a high concentration of reptilian genetics, and they wanted to maintain a pure lineage that later led to the incarnation of Jesus. So that's why they were very adamant for the Hebrew God to prohibit early Israelites to mix with the clans of Isis because they wanted to retain that heritage. That could be because they are clones. Most of the celebrities are cloned, by the way.
Well, where's the original soul? Where did the original soul of them all go?
You could say it's being contained by the dark forces, but there is a way to retrieve them. There is a way to retrieve their souls. But you have to understand, they made that choice. All those celebrities made the choice to have sex with little kids, to go be part of that pedophilia, blasphemous, satanic stuff. And so that's how it's like that saying, that's how you sell your soul to the devil,
Right.
So in a way, it's like they sold their soul to the devil. But I believe that when the solar flash takes place and at the end of the millennium, they will be giving another opportunity to return back to to the light.
So they're not lost forever.
No, they're not lost forever. No.
Okay, good. Oh, this is such a burning question for me. There's still people out there. Like, some people understood right away what was happening in the world, and some people, like, I could talk till I'm blue, and it's like I'm talking Chinese. Why is it that some people understand what's happening in the world, and some people, no matter how much you explain it to them, they just can't understand?
Because some of those are NPCs. It turns out that over 40% of the population are soulless people that are being generated by the AI system. Kind of like the movie The Matrix. They have no connection.
But this is my family and like my staff and like. I don't think they're NPCs. I mean.
Or another reason could be is because they're just so indoctrinated by the media and their belief systems that it's kind of like it's impossible. It's impossible for them to even grasp anything other than what they've been told or groomed in. It's something
possible. Go ahead.
It's cognitive dissonance. They don't want to accept anything outside of the box. They're very comfortable in the box.
Right. They get scared. They actually get scared when I start talking too much. So I see the fear. But I was thinking that the people who understand, is it possible that the people that don't understand, it's because they're like not starseeds. Like, if you're a starseed, you understand what's going on, and if you're an Earth Terran, you don't. Does that make sense?
Well, not all Earth Terrans. Some Earth Terrans are waking up. They're understanding.
Right. So it's not really because of that.
It's not because of that. It's because of it's how embedded and rooted they are in the deception. Where they even believe it so much to the point where they'll even argue with you about it.
Get mad. They get mad. Okay, hold on. I have 3 questions from a friend of mine. You have a few more minutes?
Yes, we have time.
Okay. She asks, what will happen to the minor children of those that have been arrested or executed? To the little kids.
The kids are innocent. The kids are going to be given the opportunity to live a good life.
So they'll be fine. Okay. And then she said, here.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
Okay, good. She said, here's an egotistical question. Ismael says we return to 30 years old and keep these avatar bodies for eternity. What if we're not entirely happy with this body, and can we manifest those changes? That's like a girl question.
Once you activate your dormant DNA through the power of your mind and emotion, you will be able to morph into your ideal self.
Interesting. I love that. I feel like we could even do that now. If you really meditated on changing a certain part of your body.
Oh, I have already. I'm going to be 45 next month, and I've already regressed the aging process. I to never age again.
You're showing off now. Now you're showing off.
I'm going to be looking young forever.
You will be. We all will be. I believe that. I really believe that. And she says, the last thing she says, if we choose to return to our original star system while ascended, do we get a new avatar to match the original star family to fit in? Or if we're star seeds who volunteered, is it our soul contract to stay in ascended Terra? I think did you get that question? Okay, she was saying that can we go back to our original star system after ascension? If let's say,
yes, that's going to be your choice. So,
and we get that avatar, we go into that to match that planet.
Well, what's happening is when the ascension takes place, we're going to be undergoing what I call
Thank you for making the time for me today. And
My pleasure.
we'll pick it up next time.
Yes, we will. To be continued.
To be continued. Bye, guys.